Hasta.
Okay. Um, Hello people. So, we're just gonna start here. Uh, Today was an update, 1% all the way close to 2% across the board, and the pre-market for manana is continuing up. We had some earnings come out of Amazon, Meta, and what was the other one? I'll think of it, hopefully. Amazon, Meta, and I forget the third one
Apple.
now. Apple. As you can see, Meta and Amazon are up the highest percentage change right now. And we'll look at this. Meta went cray cray. Um, I got in playing with fire, and I'm screwed now.
Ladies and gentlemen, always take your sandwich.
And I stayed in. So my average price is about 422, 23 or something like that. And it's 454. So it's a very bad situation. And it did not come down. It just kept going up and up and up and and up. So this better come down, or people who guessed left and it went right got screwed. So uh it just hit, I guess, on all, for whatever reason they wanted it to bounce up. So I don't know why they don't have the percentage here, but the revenue was high, the earnings were high, and it just went cray cray. And yesterday, people wanted things to come down for Meta. They did it. So this is where we're at, people. So from closing here around 398.97 to here, nearly $60 difference. So we'll see if this comes down, but it's strong as heck. Amazon has started to come down because originally, and then when Meta started going up, it went crazy too. Obviously, it affected. Oh, come on, why is it this? Obviously, this affected Meta. I mean Amazon, and it started going up the yin. So, not as bad, but still bad. Um, so yeah, but at least there were some dips, and it didn't go too crazy. And initially, it went up, and then it started to come down, and then when Meta came out, it just went cray cray. We're looking at still did very well, and but um, the thing that caused it to go up was Meta, not per se earnings, because it just time Meta went up, it just went shot like a rocket. So, and also Amazon wasn't as frothy as Meta was. Um, it wasn't up to the all-time highs or even previous all-time highs or new all-time highs. Like
It's near it now because of Meta.
Let's say $20. So
Yes, I said it's nearer compared to how it was before. I mean, it was
Um, so because of that, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yes. It's a lot closer than it was now. So, uh, but Meta had already surpassed new all-time highs before earnings came out. A lot of people, including myself, thought it was very frothy, and it would come down as yesterday's earnings soft the and who else was there? Uh, AMD and what was the other one?
it was AMD.
It was another one, Softy, AMD, and something else. It was one of the things.
Google.
Google. So, but those were more tempered, and they had kind of were very relatively weak. Open went up 359, but this was only because of what you call it that is at this price.
Meta.
It had went down most of the day and then was creeping back up, but it never got to the highs that it had been. But if it wasn't for this and the aftermarket, I would say open would have been considered a down day for me, because I make money on it going down. I wish I had got out here, but hey, it is what it is. I thought it would have kept going down, but I did get out before it got higher up. So I'm glad I did get out of that. And we made a few, well, not you didn't make it on that, but you made it on P-Town, which we will show. P-Town was one of the losers of the day. AMD, aftermarket, we know what's going on here. It seemed like everything kind of got bumped up. AMD was relatively neutral, more probably down, I would say, today than anything. um, and some things gave it a bounce. Target, it got 4%. Target's been strong for a while, but it was coming up all day. It's been kind of like it's climbing. It got past this area here of consolidation. Some people want to call it support. I'll say consolidation. And then there's really nothing holding it back. It went down this time. It's going to come up from this way this time. And we're going to have this area here. And we'll see how strong it is. So Lyft did well. Dollar Tree did well today. And it looks like this was an all-day thing. Let's see. What do we have? Okay, we got 27 days for earnings. Uber and Lyft, they generally do the same thing. Dollar General, who cares? Ruco, it seems like it's coming up a little bit. No, it's not coming up. Okay. It just had a good day today, I guess. Oh, it seemed like this was also affected by
Meta.
Meta and
That's the keyword of the day, the annoying word of the day.
all the other stuff. So this is kind of like a nice techie stock. So, Dix, it came up all day today. Softy, it was relatively weak. I was shorting this for a while, and I guess it came up a little bit, but not like everything else. So it closed around here. So it came up somewhat. So I guess Meta also affected it, but not as much. Otherwise, as you can see, Microsoft had a bad day after its earnings, and it tanked because it had been very frothy, and it had reached its all-time highs prior to earnings. And so we're saying, oh, people want to take money, and we kind of assume a similar thing would happen um, with Amazon and Meta, and of course that didn't happen. Walmart, it seems like this got affected too, but let's see. Nope, this went up all day, and then aftermarket,
The
it got
reason the
stuck.
reason the reason it went up all day is because they had announced a split of the stock.
Oh yeah, to help people buy afford the stock.
Correct.
So
So
um,
hence why it went down and then it went up like cray. As you can see, the gap has been filled.
so uh, so a lot of people are gonna buy this now, and it will continue to go up. It will fill this gap and continue. Um, I guess it could come back because this was the first time, but still, I'm assuming it will go past it only because of the split. People seem to like splits, and um,
Yes, I think it's gonna go surpass it. 173, 175 area, and people then are gonna be like, okay, that's it. I want to take my money.
the only thing um, is that with Walmart, they don't have as much open shares. It's kind of like the family owns it, so these things don't move as quickly. So maybe making it cheaper will make a lot of people who have these shares are people who work for the company, and the family management.
Yes. And
And
so
so,
they're not really traders. They're just leaving that there for it to grow.
um, if you're going to, like, they're just gonna move like crazy, like Fang stock or tech stock. It's not. I don't. I think it will help it, but it's not going to. It's not going to make people just jump into it like random people um, who are not affiliated with Walmart. So it's just something that you should be aware of. Um, yes, it may move a little bit more quickly, but um, these people, I think Walmart's more of a stock that's controlled, um, kind of like even Avis and stuff like that. Even though Avis is not that great, I think it's controlled by the powers that be. Let's put it that way. Uh, uh, I don't care about Walmart, but we'll show it anyway. Um, and McDonald's, we know where that's at. It's still going. It had a nice day today. Um, yeah, it came up all day. Disney, okay. It's seems like it's chugging along, trying to get close to that $100 dollar level. Coin, I think this is the first time in a long time it's come up. Uh, 130. It's been in the 120s for a while now. Campbell's, this is nice to see this. Um, and it came up all day. Really nice to see this. Anything where it says, "Hey, I'm close to $50," is good. Um, Google, um, like we said yesterday with Google, it was relatively weak. Um, we had basically this crazy gap, and it was just kind of like, even though its earnings were good, um, and then it came up a little bit, but it was kind of like Walmart. It was relatively weak. Um, And today it started out a little bit higher, but it kind of just chugged down. So the fact that it's up some is good, but to me, it's in the Walmart grouping of, hey, good earnings, we go down. And I think, let's see, it was doing better overall. Um, uh, yeah, so when it had already reached its basically, I'm gonna call this all-time high, even though I'm not sure. Yeah, I'll call it an all-time high. It had kind of reached its all-time high. Um, in that respect, it was already there at new all-time highs, but it still had good earnings, and it it tanked versus today. That didn't happen. Um, so Tesla, uh, let's see, Tesla. I'm really not interested in this. Um, a lot of people have already said it's going down to this 160 area. So it's just like it may do a little bit of bounce, but it seemed like people have written it off. So I guess you can continue to short it for a while. Macy's, uh, I think it's going down. Um, but we'll see. I just feel with that buyout or whatever over 28 days, I just don't feel that it's gonna keep this high price. I think it came up too fast. Like maybe if it goes down to this $15 level and then establishes itself and then comes back up, but I just don't see how it can get back to 25 just like that. Half of a percent for Americano, and it dipped a lot. So I guess you could say that's relatively good. It dipped like crazy today. So
This should be on the notes.
to me, this is almost it's almost I would classify this as a down day because what happens in the beginning of the day is usually what sets the tone. So even if you come back, a lot of people just don't hold on that long. So I guess we could say it came back and had a half a percent increase, but it's not anything to write home about unless you just you like it and you just want to get in. But it is coming up. We have our three mountains here, so maybe today was the best time to get in at the low. So UPS, it also had earnings and it got hit because of competition with FedEx, the union stuff, all of that kind of stuff. XOM, uh, 2 negative days. Um, I'm actually a little bit surprised at this uh, with the additional bombings and stuff we're doing with Iran, that this isn't going up more. I kind of think it will be or should. Um, I really do think it's going to get around that 115 mark. I wasn't sure before, but now with the additional Houthi bombings and that fights and stuff like that, I think it has to come up. I know the U.S. is trying to keep the price of gas down to hurt Russia, but still, I just feel it may do a little bit of a bounce up before it comes back down. But it still is winter, so who knows? It could continue. Oh, we have tomorrow. Okay, this will tell us everything we need to know. Uh, yeah. So tomorrow we'll find out whether it's before or after.
It's before because on Fridays they don't do anything after.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe this is gonna help us come up a little bit. Put this on the notes so we can keep an eye on this. Nikete, and at least it's over 100, but still, it was close to the 104 area, and then various other Kaka brought it down. Um, uh, let's see. BA had a down day today. Probably you could have got a better number. But so yeah. It had a really crazy update yesterday when everything else was down. So it would have been common sense to short this, but we didn't think about it. EBC was down again today. I think it was down yesterday too, relatively speaking. It showed it was coming down. It did the same thing. So this is something that we like it. Ooh. So let's just watch. It does have this gap here that let's see if this get filled. Looks like it got filled, but it could keep going down. Let's just wait and see if you know, it's gonna continue to go down because it did do bad on its earnings, so that could play a part in this. A smaller, even though we like it, let's not go crazy with it. Bank of America had a very good few days. Last couple of days, it's been down, but it's not really surprising based on how the market's been. Apple, this was the other one yesterday, um, where we were saying it didn't really do anything. Um, it was like basically weak. You had the little gap here the other day, and now I think this would have been ooh, it's still going down. Jeez.
This is the one that you should have shortened because it had earnings today.
Jeez. So
And of course it wasn't even bad, but
yeah,
because of
so
the
they didn't
China
even
stuff,
care. They didn't even care like that.
it was
This should
because
have
of the
been
guidance and stuff.
this should have been in yesterday's group of the down group. The way it came out. So this thing said, I don't care. It probably did a little spark, but then it said, I don't give a damn. I'm going down because that's what I was planning on doing. So there you go. I wanted to my hatred of Meta, my blind hatred of Meta caused me to probably lose money overall. Let's see if it comes out tomorrow, but that's how your bias, ideas, and intentions, no matter what you think of a stock, you have to look at it objectively. And if you can't look at it objectively, you have to have someone else see it for you because if not, you could screw yourself. And so my blind hatred of Meta caused
You
me
can
to,
say that again. You need
I
a voucher.
I would have gotten into Amazon. But then when I was like, oh, Meta's doing earnings, nope. Let me get off on Amazon and go to Meta because of just blind hatred. So that tells you how you can screw yourself. Uh, Also, our friend Leslie, our
Guys, you can't be married to a stock and you can't divorce yourself from the stock. You kind of have to be neutral.
um, so this thing went down. We were looking at what it was 23% nearly. and it just went down like a rock. Someone made out like a bandit, and then followed
Muchas
her
gracias. Muchas gracias.
someone who followed her coattails and got just a few shares. I didn't even have 200 shares, and that was still my number one play for making dinero. So that tells you everything you need to know, people. And if you had a good number of shares, literally, Miss Munoz made out like a bandit on this thing because it just dropped like a hot potato. And she did her, get rid of half, get rid of 20%, like getting rid of pieces throughout the day, all day, and basically making money all day. Because it got down to 417. Came up just a little bit. We'll see what's going to happen tomorrow. We may get a little bounce because that's just what happens. Um, but you should assume that it's going to continue to go down and just get the bounce if you can.
Wait for the pops, guys. Yes.
Um,
And this is why it's important to look at the fundamentals and just commonsensical stuff because it's like, yeah, this may be all hyped up, but when you look at like the earnings and stuff, this thing is losing money like a waterfall.
DraftKings is past 40. It's nice to see that. I'm actually surprised. So maybe we'll keep going up until we get to the Super Bowl. I thought it was going to start drifting, but it seems like it didn't. Uh, uh, yeah, what do we do here? February. Yeah, it did keep going. Um, so let's see if this continues. We were looking at 50, I think, talking about 50, uh, around that area. Yeah, potentially 50. Um, Based on the chart, this could happen. And yeah, um, it seems like a nice stopping spot. Um, if it can get there, that would be great. I wish I could have waited for it, but I didn't. But this is something that I think it will keep growing as we keep getting more states that go online. Um, but if we look at Hall, if you have anything, just shout it out. He, um, and we still got a ways to go. We were getting down to our 30, but it kind of didn't uptick. So we'll just wait and see.
Yes, just wait.
What is this? Dash. I know that's one that you like. Dash is going cray cray. Good. It's coming up, and it seems like this is like a nice point for it. This 100 and 110 area here. If it can get past that, it can move. You know, get to this 128 and it doesn't come down. This thing can move. You have 150 here. So okay, well, this is the thing that will stop it. It's still losing money. So let's see. Yeah,
But
still
not as much money as
making
before.
money.
It's
That
been it's been doing better than before.
is number one thing. Um, I wanted to do a video, but I only got 10 minutes, so I may not do it. I'll do it another day when I have like 13 minutes. I was supposed to finish today, but um, maybe I'll do half of the video.
What's the video about?
You guys will see. So,
Not even give us a
um,
clue.
nah, it will be about finances. Let's see. Someone's complaining, of course.
Nelita.
Let's see. This
It's no secret that rent is getting harder and harder to afford in this country. But according to a new report from Harvard, the affordability crisis has reached an all-time high, and it's hitting people across the income spectrum. For more, I'm joined by Chris Herbert, Managing Director of the Harvard Joint Center for Housing Studies, the group behind the report, and Lizzie Wyant, Deputy Executive Director for the Metropolitan Area Planning. Thank you both so much for being here. So housing is, this is a national report, but it's ultimately a very local issue. Can you talk about how the findings in this report, Chris, compare to the region of New England or Massachusetts?
Sure, and thanks for having us. In many respects, what's happening here in Boston is very much a reflection of what's happening nationally. We've seen rents going through the roof, and we've seen the number of renters who are struggling to pay their rent reaching record highs. The difference in Boston is that we are an economically strong region. So if we compare Boston to the rest of the country, our rents are much higher than they are in other parts of the country. We document the fact that the nation has lost a lot of rental units renting for less than $1,000 over the last decade. In Boston, we lost those a long time ago. So in Boston, what's happening is the shift in rents is happening at a much higher level. We're losing rentals under $1,400 in Boston. And so it's the same problem, but it's just all shifted over to a higher end of the market. But in both cases, in the nation and in Boston, it's people across the income spectrum who are really struggling to be able to afford rent.
Well, that's a really interesting part of this report that I wanted to ask you about. Lizzie, did you want to say something? Okay, I'm sorry. Just as of 2022, your research found that nearly 1 in 4 renters were severely overburdened by the cost of housing. So they're spending at least half of their income every month on housing. That's up from 15% back in 2001. You mentioned that here in Massachusetts and in Boston, people are making more money. I'm wondering how the report it shows a record number of households being cost burdened, but rent growth is flat, meaning that people, it kind of cooled off after this big bump in 2022, and people are having a more difficult time affording their rent, but rent itself is not necessarily skyrocketing, right? So is it that people are just are they making more money or just unable to afford rent? Like, how does this report square with the fact that people can't pay their rent, but rent isn't necessarily as high maybe as it was during this huge boom?
Sure. 2 things to take note of. One is that, we're relying on big national surveys that come out with a lag. So our measure of how many people are facing unaffordable rents is from 2022. So there's a little bit of a lag there. And so you're right. When we report on what's happening most recently with rent trends, we find is that rents that were growing at double digits are now down to about 0. In Boston, I think they're growing at about 3%. That sounds like a good story, but when you say that rents went to the highest levels they've ever been, and now they're not growing anymore, that just means the problem's not getting worse. It doesn't mean that you can now suddenly find an apartment that's affordable. It is the case that if incomes are going up faster than that, 2 or 3% of rents, that there will be some progress made in gaining ground on affordability, but we've lost so much ground that just growing at 0% or not growing at all is going to take a long time for people to get back where they were just a few years ago.
Lizzie, I wanted to ask you a little bit about how we got here, right? So I think housing has now become, in recent years, a huge issue, right? It's definitely a part of the mainstream. It's part of every political campaign. It has to be addressed. We're in a housing crisis everywhere, as we see from the report. How did we get here, and what are the solutions that are being proposed?
I think there's probably 3 main things that contributed to how we got here. I think it's the fact that we've had insufficient funding to meet all of our housing needs. We have incredibly restrictive zoning in Massachusetts, and it's all those decisions are made at the local level. And we just don't have enough affordable housing or affordability overall. And all of those things contribute to the fact that we have not been able to meet our housing targets or to produce nearly enough housing to meet demand.
Right. We saw in the report, in just a couple of years ago, we had this big boom of multifamily building construction. That slowed as well. But even then, most of that wasn't affordable, right?
Yeah, I think primarily what we're seeing is builders building at the upper end of the market, which is typically what builders will do, which is not a bad thing, right? If we build a lot of high-end rental housing, that means is that people will move out of their current apartment, move into that high-end rental housing, and vacate some other housing in lower price points. It's called filtering. So we build a lot of housing at the top, and then that adds to supply and ultimately keeps rent pressures down across the board. But in order for filtering to work is you have to build enough housing so that you have an excess of housing that allows for that filtering process to happen. And to Lizzie's point, we just haven't been building enough. As much as we're building a lot of apartments, the demand for apartments from millennials moving back into the cities over the last decade has been astounding. And so we haven't been building enough to keep up demand. That filtering process hasn't had a chance to work. And so rents are getting pushed up across the board instead of falling. I think to your point earlier, now we are starting to see that supply catch up with demand. Rents have started to have leveled off at zero, which in the long run, that's what we need to do to get the market back into equilibrium. But we don't live in the long run, we live in today. And so what do we do now about trying to help sure that people can find a house that they can afford?
Well, what do we do now? Because I think you're mentioning this kind of, I don't want to say trickle down economics. Obviously that's loaded, but that's kind of what it sounds like, right? Is that, if you build enough of these luxury condos, then eventually everything will become affordable. But when you have these government restrictions, as Lizzie mentioned, zoning laws and all these other sort of political things that slow the process down, what would incentivize me as somebody who, is going to put up an apartment building to make a percentage of that affordable or to create an affordable apartment building? Why would I choose to do that if it's going to be more costly and take more time and use different, more material? Like, why it's going to be a huge slog? What's going to incentivize me to do that?
Well, I think that's why we need some of the policies that are in the Housing Act that the governor proposed. We call it the Housing Bond Bill, the Affordable Homes Act, alongside some of.
I'm gonna stop it so we don't get cut off there. We'll remember this area around 7, and we'll continue there. We only got about a minute and 20 seconds. I thought that was a good video for us to listen to and discuss. Obviously, it's locally tilted, but I think Massachusetts has a unique situation where, yes, we do have people who make the income, but still they can't afford the house. But in most places, people don't make the income and they can't afford the housing. So if you are a high earner, then you can get stuff much cheaper versus here. Almost everybody's a high earner because you kind of have to be, but you still can't afford it. Or do you want to afford it? It's more of the question. Because I know I wouldn't want to pay $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment.
You can say that again.
So some people would, but I wouldn't want to. If I could find a 2-bedroom place for maybe $3,000 and have 2 couples live there, aka 4 people, then it would be $1,500 per couple. So that would be $750. Maybe that would be doable, but that would be $3,000